The topic sent to me was a broader one. Should human rights always outweigh religious rights? Though I know our discussion has primarily been about Islam and human rights, but I'll take the topic in its broader phraseology. First of all, I congratulate Professor James Biscatori for his very learned, measured presentation. He gave a very broad panorama of the debate about Islam and human rights. I'm actually on the same page with him on most issues. However, Prof didn't get time to discuss other religions, which is always a limitation in any presentation. If he had the time to discuss other religions, I'm sure he would have found that the kind of dogmatism that is existing in Islam exists in almost all other religions. For example, in the USA, there has been shooting at abortion clinics because abortion is against religion. When George Bush invaded Iraq, some of you may remember, he said, "I have done what God asked me to do." I don't know which God he was talking about, because the God of Christianity that I know a little bit about is a God of love and peace, but in Texas, they have a different God. In Bosnia, there was religious killings. The BJP in India uses religion to spread hate. The Babri Mosque was destroyed. At one particular point in Ahmedabad, they surrounded a community. They used the electoral roll to find out who is a Muslim, which household, which shop is a Muslim. They burned them, 7,000 people died. So actually all religions are mansions with many rooms, offering many different perspectives of the garden outside or the thicket outside. It depends on us. Which view of religion do we wish to adopt? Which part of our ecclesiastical doctrine we wish to use or abuse for whatever subjective purpose we have in mind? I think if you look at Islamic theory and Christian theory, or Islamic theory and Hindu theory, the distance between theories is not that great. In fact, the distance between practice is also not that great. But the great difference is this, that in Islamic societies, contrary to many other societies, especially Western ones, the variety, diversity of views is suppressed, absolutely suppressed. So there is only one view of Islam, predominantly one view of Islam that comes out not only in foreign media, in our own media. And I think that's the big difference between Islam and the other religions and Islamic societies and other societies, that other societies have this wholesome discussion going on and efforts going on to reconcile religious precepts with human rights doctrines. For example, on the issue of apostasy, my reading of the Holy Quran is that apostasy is a sin, a great sin, but it is not a crime. The Holy Quran has several passages about apostasy, and basically the idea is this: if they leave you alone, you leave them alone. But only if they indulge in fitna, only if they declare war against you, then of course they should be put to death. Then there is the hadith. There are clear hadiths whereby Prophet Muhammad ordered severe punishment, but at the same time there is also the practice of the Prophet. He signed the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, allowing Muslim converts who converted to Christianity to leave in peace and go and join their newfound community. Stoning to death is not in the Quran, but somehow the Muslim community believes it's the word of God. So I think that's the problem, that Muslim societies have foolishly suppressed all discussion about religion. And Malaysia is perhaps a good example where actually only one, a very narrow, conservative, kind of hostile viewpoint of Islam comes out. I would interpret today's topic broadly. I think the underlying purpose of all of us spending our Sunday morning here is to seek a balanced reconciliation between two great forces of civilization, religion and human rights, and to harness these two great forces for the common cause of human welfare. I have to say this very plainly. I think the idea that one must override the other is a non-starter. At least it's a non-starter with a large part of Asia. So let's not even attempt that. Let's try to reconcile. In this spirit, I wish to make a number of observations. First of all, the idea that religion and human rights are two separate adversarial concepts is an exaggeration. The right to profess, to practice, and to propagate one's religion is itself one of history's oldest and passionately sought after human rights. A total dichotomy between the two, human rights and religion, is not justifiable. Secondly, the ideology of human rights has lately become a new religion. Human rights theories and the international law on human rights contain sweeping value judgments that rest not on facts, but on faith. I support most of them, but I have to concede as a student of jurisprudence that many of the value judgments are not provable as right or wrong or just or unfair. They are matters of secular belief, just like in religion there is aqidah or faith. Like religion, human rights are being preached and being proselytized as if they are the new universal religion of all mankind. Value relativism and contextual interpretations are rejected. I am told that the Asian values argument is a camouflage for authoritarianism. New human rights standards are sometimes enforced by force of arms, regime changes, and economic sanctions. So I think the idea of human rights has also become a new religion today. Further, diversity in religious doctrine. Every religion without exception, as I said earlier, has a tremendous, beautiful tapestry of doctrines, principles, beliefs, and fables that embrace the interconnectedness of life, the importance of love, tolerance, sacrifice, and peace. At the same time, we cannot deny throughout history, all religions without exception have now and then been abused to divide, to denigrate, to justify wars, brutalities, and commit brutalities and inhumanities. There is almost in every religious book something for everyone and for any purpose. It is our subjective choice to determine which portion of the ecclesiastical doctrine should be regarded as the true mirror of a religious faith. It is our subjective choice to determine who speaks for a particular religion, the preacher of hate or the practitioner of tolerance, forgiveness, and love. It is also our subjective choice to determine whether a religion will be judged by its pristine theory or by the horrible practices of some of its practitioners. It is not fair to judge the theory of one religion with the mundane practice of another. I think theory should be compared with theory and practice should be compared with practice. And once you do that, you see that, we are all equally culpable of massive wrongs. When we ask the question, is religion a friend or foe of human rights? The answer is bound to be subjective. Whether it is Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, we can find within them whatever we are searching for. Now, further, there is diversity in human rights theory. Just as with religion, the human rights theory is wide, varied, and expanding, and has commendable as well as condemnable narratives. Human rights jurisprudence incorporates first generation civil and political rights, second generation socio-economic rights, third generation development rights. This is all very beautiful. At the same time, the human rights theory has some weaknesses. For example, rights, most of us will agree, rights must go hand in hand with duties. Duties to oneself. That's the concept of dignity. Must maintain your dignity. Duties to oneself, duties to one's family, to one's community, nation, and now to the world at large. Human rights jurisprudence sadly pays insufficient attention. I won't say no attention, insufficient attention to duties that complement rights. In religion, on the other hand, duties to God and fellow humans are paramount. Religion tends to be God-centered rather than humanity-centered. In religion, the correlative rights, which are not denied, every duty has correlative rights, but the correlative rights are merely consequential. In the human rights theory, as propounded by some people, the right to personal autonomy treats pornography and blasphemy as part of free speech. Drugs, drinking, gambling, abortion, surrogate motherhood, sexual orientation, cross-gender dressing, free sex are regarded as part of personal liberty. The right to life in India, in one case, the right to life includes the right to extinguish life through suicide and euthanasia. The suicide law was challenged as a violation of the right to life. I have a right to speak, so I have a right to remain silent. I have a right to movement, I have a right not to move. I have a right to life, I have a right to extinguish my life. Well, so the human rights doctrine can be pushed sometimes to extreme lengths. Contemporary human rights thinking regards everyone as entitled to his own view of the good life. He can do whatever gives him pleasure, a very hedonistic way of looking at things. He can live howsoever he wishes. The concept of divine will, the world beyond, and the concept of sin are regarded as irrelevant or subordinate to the human rights quest. So what do we do then? Clearly, there are doctrines of human rights that are, doctrines of religion that are violation of human rights, and there are doctrines of human rights that are clear violation of the concept of sin, of the will of God, of what our holy books teach. So what do we do? How do we reconcile what is possibly the irreconcilable? Personally speaking, I think most of us wish to treasure both human rights and religion. It's not a case of either one or the other. For this reason, we need to build bridges between these two great yearnings. They are great yearnings, and there cannot be any denying of that. I think we need to recognize that religion and human rights can be, they indeed are, they're overlapping circles. At the center, at the core, there is a great deal in common, but at the fringes, at the penumbra, there is obviously a lot of difference. So what do we do to increase the central core and to reduce the fringes? First of all, I think religious leaders must recognize that religion is not only about personal salvation. Religion is also about service. I think in most of our religious charamas and the khutbahs, the idea is, how do you seek forgiveness from God? How do you end up in heaven and not in hell? I think the emphasis should be on service to others. What do my religious teachers tell me about taking care of the widow, the orphan, the needy, the aged, the one who is suffering from some incurable disease? What do they tell me? Not much. What do they do themselves? Not much. They are basically concerned about how I can ensure a ticket to heaven. So I think this is one change that must come. Religion, I'm talking of Islam in particular, religion must not be only about salvation and about the afterlife. It must be not just God-centered, it must be human-centered. Secondly, I think we must defend religion against vilification. There is no evidence that religion is a greater threat to human rights than economics or politics or ethnicity or democracy, or for that matter, the ideology of human rights. While conceding that in the name of religion, great atrocities have been committed and are being committed in all civilizations, it must also be noted that wars, conquest, genocide, ethnic cleansing, use of atomic weapons, regime changes, economic sanctions, blockades are equally common, if not more common, for political, ethnic, or economic reasons than for reasons of religion. Tell me, the Vietnam War, the massacres there, the dehumanization, was that based on religion? Tell me, the invasion of Iraq, was it caused by religion? So what are these, the planes that are dropping bombs on people? The drones, tell me, the drone attacks now, are they not savage? So I think in the last 3,400 years of human history, it has been estimated that there has been peace only for 268 years, i.e. for only about 8 8% of our history. And religion is not the only one to be blamed for that. Just like religion, democracy, human rights are ideas. Ideas can be used for any purpose, to uplift mankind or actually to indulge in atrocities. So we need to accept the middle path. The middle path of moderation. I know moderation is a dirty word, but nevertheless I'll use it. Yes, the hermeneutic approach. In other words, you use a word according to how people understand. A lot of people, at least in the government these days, are using the word moderation badly. I think we need the middle path of moderation in religion as well as in human rights. Democracy and human rights should not be used as aggressive instruments for pressure in foreign affairs. Human rights extremism, and Prof. James clearly mentioned this in an admirable way. For example, free speech fanaticism. I think that's not justified. Please, I'm a student of constitutional law. Don't tell me that free speech is absolute. Come on. Every country of the world has laws on official secrets. There are people who reveal secrets who have to flee their country and seek refuge in Russia. Come on. Don't tell me that the European Court of Justice does not sanction, does not permit people's punishment because they challenged the official version of the genocide in Germany. There are laws that permit that. I've been a student of British constitutional law. People who criticize Israel or the Jews or challenge the genocide, they are hauled up for breach of public order. But when Salman Rushdie or Charlie Hebdo does it, that's free speech. So there's a lot of hypocrisy and double standards operating. Please, don't tell me that free speech is absolute. It's not absolute anywhere in the world. In the UK, there are about 265 separate laws, bylaws, regulations against release of official information. 265 or so. So let's be moderate here. Let's walk the middle path. Not every civil claim or demand should be canonized as a human right. There's a difference between core human rights and ordinary civil claims and expectations. The nomenclature of human rights should be reserved only for those core beliefs over which there is wide, universal, inter-civilizational agreement. And no one should tell me that I have no right to my own concept of human rights. I know on some core issues things are universal, but surely in some areas, for example, I'm not allowed to write a will giving all my property to whoever I like. Is that a violation of my human rights? Maybe there is from some point of views, but on the other hand, the idea in Islam is this, that you can't cut out your family members. You can't cut out your wife or your husband or your children. So I can't give all my property to my dog and to my cat. I must not deprive my wife and my children of their property. Wasiyat is allowed only to the bequeathable 1/3. 2/3 must go by way of inheritance. Now, maybe that's not a principle you like, but it is a different principle and not entirely unjustifiable. I know for a fact that many people, just to spite their spouse, will give all their property away to someone else. We are not allowed to do that. Then on the issue of law and morals, vigilantism in the name of religion is spreading in this country. I humbly submit that in the area of law and morals, a distinction could be made between public and private spheres. The state should not invade the private sphere except on the most pressing grounds of security and public order. Some morally questionable claims, such as the right of speech to pornography, should be punished only if the violator trespasses into the public domain. While not legalizing these sinful practices, and yes, there is a concept of sin in the minds of most people, and no matter what you and I may like, it's not going to go away. There is a concept of sin. So, while not legalizing these sinful practices, the state should observe its duty to respect individual privacy as long as the conduct remains in the private sphere. Prof, there is a very nice story. It's a fable about Hazrat Omar, the second Khalif, jumping into a house and trying to catch people. I think they were gambling, is it?
Drinking.
Yeah, drinking.
Yeah.
So the owner of the house said, well, yeah, I've committed wrong, but so have you. You should be coming into my house from the front door. You should knock 3 times, not jump over the wall. So I think there is a concept of privacy in Islam. Crime and sin. The worldview of religion and human rights has many contrasts. In religion, all religions, belief in God, in piety are emphasized. The concept of sin and sacrilege offer breaks to personal autonomy. Atheism and apostasy, sin and sacrilege are condemned. Nevertheless, a distinction between crime and sin exists and should be recognized by our law. Our Shari'a authorities don't seem to recognize this distinction. Some religious wrongs could be regarded as sins and not crimes, to be punished by God in the hereafter and not by the state through the agency of law. And finally, reinterpretation and application of religion. Prof. James so learnedly pointed out that there are so many alternative views and visions that are available even in Islam. There is a rich diversity of views within each religion. Juristic interpretation is an art, not a science. The book may be holy, the book is holy, but the interpretations are entirely human. Statutory construction of the religious text can be pedantic, strict and liberal, or it can be purposive, constructive, creative and holistic. One can go behind the context, behind the text to the context. Speaking with particular reference to Islam, it can be stated that actually diversity of views is part of the richness of Islamic doctrine. But as I said earlier, this diversity is deliberately suppressed in Malaysia. I think we need to unlock the doors of ijtihad, that is independent reasoning, by relying on ijma, qiyas, istihsan, istisla, many other doctrines of Islamic jurisprudence to confront and resolve the myriad of problems confronting us. A distinction should be drawn between what is Shari'a and what is fiqh. Fiqh is Islamic jurisprudence. It's entirely human. The former is revealed, sacred and universal. The latter is a product of human understanding or misunderstanding, mundane, temporal, and it is subject to change. A distinction must be made between matters of ibadah and matters of mu'amala. The former deals with relations between Allah and the believers. The latter regulates relations between citizens and is a matter of social construction. Now, instead of thought control, which is so successfully achieved in this country, I think the curriculum of Islamic institutions, educational institutions, should include the works of Islamic scholars who challenged the authoritarianism of religious ideologues. There is a long list of liberal Islamic thinkers, another word, liberal, dirty word in this country. There's a long list of liberal Islamic thinkers who need to be studied, from Ibn al-Rawandi to Abu Rayhan al-Biruni, Ibn Rushd, Nasr Hamid, Abu Zaid, Adonis, and of course in modern times scholars like Tariq Ramadan, Zainuddin, Sardar and others. I think if these ideas could come out, we will be on the path to a better reconciliation between Islam and human rights. In sum, religion and human rights are both great forces that need to be harnessed for the common cause of human salvation. A constructive relationship between the two is possible if we adopt attitudes that strengthen the link between religion and the rights theory. In large areas of law, politics, government, accountability, environmentalism, social justice, and development theories, religion and human rights are not incompatible. Just this morning, I was looking up Surah Al-Baqarah, Ayat 177, worship or piety or prayer is not to turn to the east or the west. Worship is to free the slave, to feed the wayfarer, the widow, the orphan, the needy. Worship is to observe your obligations. So I think there's a great deal in all religions, including Islam, which is compatible with social justice. One cannot deny, however, that in some areas the core beliefs of religion come in conflict with many modern-day cascading claims of human rights. Though full reconciliation may not be possible, the distance between religion and human rights can be reduced if moderate, holistic attitudes are adopted towards the interpretation of both religion and the doctrine of human rights. Thank you very much.